Alright everyone, hello and welcome to another episode of Nathan Builds Robots. Today I'm going to be going over all of my favorite YouTubers, and I'm going to be ranking them on this tier list. Now I didn't want to do this like, S tier, A tier, whatever, and just going down the list of like better and worse YouTubers. But instead I decided to do this like, I'm acting as if I was starting a company and I needed to hire people. And I was only allowed to hire people in the 3D printing YouTube scene. Here's my list of 3D printing YouTubers, and I'm just going to go along and place these people in different departments. Now, of course, there is a bit of an implied order here with executives up at the top and customer support and sales down here at the bottom. But, all of these people are going to be important in my organization, and they all have their own jobs. So I really spent a lot of time trying to figure out where exactly I wanted to place everyone. And we'll go down the list now. So first off, on the executive team, of course, I, the founder and CEO of Nathan Builds Robots Incorporated, will be up here at the top, leading the executive suite. So, this is pretty self-explanatory. If you need help figuring this out, please subscribe to my channel, and I will clearly demonstrate why I should be in charge. Okay, next up, we'll go with CNC Kitchen. So CNC Kitchen will be my right-hand man and my CTO, so Chief Technical Officer. He has a lot of experience with 3D printing and can do technical deep dives. He can even help oversee and direct a lot of the stuff going on with research and development and testing and production. And he even knows a little bit of marketing too. He's got his own product line and all that kind of stuff. So I think he would be a great choice for CTO. And for each person on the list, I'm going to go over some positives and some negatives, some things you have to watch out for, like risks that we'll need to mitigate with these people. For CNC Kitchen, he does a great job, but you gotta really keep an eye on him and make sure he doesn't dive too deep into the technicals because, we need him working on important stuff. And I'm really worried that if I didn't, constantly check in with him, he might spend a full day taking hundreds of pictures of like the very tip of a 3D printing nozzle just to get one good image. So yeah, there's definitely some risks there, but we would mitigate that with task tracking and making sure he stays on track. Let's do 3D printing nerd next. So 3D printing nerd, he's definitely going on the executive team as well. He's well networked in the 3D printing industry, both on the consumer side and the industrial side. And he knows how to go to events and schmooze and run charity events and all that kind of stuff. So all around, a great guy to have on the team. He's got a pretty well-rounded knowledge base about different 3D printing technologies and can talk to everyone. For that reason, I'm going to name him as the Chief Operating Officer of my company. So he's going to make sure that our day-to-day tasks get done and we're lining things up and working with other companies where needed, and that'll just keep things running smoothly. You just got to watch out for this guy because I'm worried that he would download a car. I know that's something that we used to worry about when people were bootlegging movies and videos. It's like, would you download a movie? Would you download a song? Would you download a car or a house? Well, I'm actually worried that he would download a car and print it. So if we can just make sure he doesn't do that for liability reasons, then that would be great. Also, we have to keep him away from hand saws and sawzalls because him and sawzalls and 3D printers don't mix. Last time we had a little incident with an Ender 6, so we want to try and avoid that. Okay, now let's start filling out our research and development department. I've got a couple people here that I think would do a great job. First off, we're going to have Rolohaun. So Rolohaun, I've talked with him a couple of times over Discord and just, having a chat about 3D printer design and all sorts of fun stuff. I think he's got quite a few subscribers now. If you haven't heard of him, you should check him out. Basically, why I want Rolohaun in charge of the research and development department, Rolohaun's the type of guy that will just design a 3D printer for fun. He'll just be, sitting at his desk one day, open up CAD and just start a design from scratch, and he'll have it built by the end of the week. So this is exactly the type of guy that I want running our research and development efforts. We need to be making new products and pushing things forward. So someone who's like really motivated to do that is what we need. But Rolohaun is not without his weaknesses. He's got a lot of admirable traits and strengths. But one thing I'm concerned about is that a lot of his printers he will just abandon mid-project. Like he'll be halfway through putting it together, and he'll be like, oh, well, I'm going to start on this other printer now. So Yeah, we definitely need to help keep him tracking, to keep him on task, so that he finishes the products that we need for our product portfolio. And tying into naming Rolohaun as the head of research and development, we're going to have a second in command, and that's going to be Matt the Printing Nerd. So Matt the Printing Nerd, basically he took one of Rolohaun's designs. Rolohaun originally designed the Rook, and Matt the Printing Nerd took that design and developed it into the 100. So the 100 was basically, the design premise was to take Rolohaun's design to the next level, and his goal was to have 100,000 millimeters per second squared accelerations. So that's 10 Gs of acceleration. That far exceeds anything else that's on the market. And I haven't been following his project too closely, but I believe he's actually reached that goal. So you can make a fully 3D printed 3D printer that can achieve 10 Gs of acceleration, and it's just super fast. So I think these two would be a great dynamic duo to head up our research and development department. The only issue is that, his name, Matt the Printing Nerd, is just a little bit too similar to the 3D Printing Nerd. So, I don't know if we gotta have some kind of rock, paper, scissors where one of them gets to decide who the real printing nerd is, but 3D Printing Nerd got there first, so we might actually have to get him to change his name. So that's the only unfortunate thing there, but, we'll work on that. Maybe we can find some kind of compromise between the two. Alright, next up we have Tom Sanladerer, and he's also going in the research and development department. Now what's great about Tom is that he has his morals. He appreciates quality design and attention to detail, and he has no fear about complaining about things that need to be complained about. I've seen him come out and just tear apart new products that come out. Just like, come on guys, why does this exist? That shouldn't exist. Why are you making these things that you shouldn't be making? So Tom's a great guy to have around, just to have like a sanity check. We don't want to spend all this time developing products, and at the end of the day it's like, well, man, we were off the mark this whole time. I feel like Tom would be the perfect guy to catch those kind of issues before they get too far along and, help us produce better products overall. Also, his attention to detail and ability to do really nice testing means he would be a really valuable asset for our research and development department. I'm almost tempted to put him into testing, but I think research and development will be the right area for Tom. Some of the risks that we're going to have to look out for with Tom is sometimes he's a little too honest. Maybe we'll have to send him to some sensitivity training and get him to filter out his feedback a little bit, because while it is valuable, it might be a bit much for some people. We don't need to have any incidents where people get their feelings hurt, so Tom might need to do some sensitivity training. Also, he has an issue where he has to have a new office every 6 months, so we need to line up a couple of places so we can have him kind of hopping around, because that seems to be what he prefers to do. People are a little bit tricky to work with sometimes, but overall, if their contributions outweigh all of those things we have to deal with, I think they still end up being really valuable members of the team. Alright, and to round out our research and development department, we're actually going to go with Wild Rose Builds. Now, I had trouble figuring out where I wanted to place Wild Rose Builds. He does some really amazing 3D printing time lapses. So you'll start with the build plate and then just this part will appear. It'll almost like it teleports into position. He does really clean time lapses and has really well calibrated print profiles, and he gets his printers tuned in to be really nice. So this is clearly a person that understands how to produce high quality prints, things that look excellent, and he also knows how to tune his printers and get them running really nicely. One thing that I'm a little bit worried about is if he gets his hands on some of our competitors' printers, he might start making them look a little bit too good. So we're going to have to keep him away from the competitors' printers and just have him focus on our printers to really build out those profiles and make everything look real nice. That just makes everyone else's jobs easier on testing, production, marketing, and sales. Everybody has a nice functioning printer with great profiles that are able to produce beautiful prints. So, I'm really tempted to put Wild Rose Builds into the marketing area because I think he would do a great job of making marketing material. But let's move them up the food chain a little bit and make sure that we have good products that we're producing. And, everyone's job will be easier that way. Also, I'm a little bit worried that since he's so good at tuning printers, since he's able to make every printer produce immaculate prints, if we have issues with our printers, he might be able to cover them up so that we're not able to discover them. But it just goes to show that he's really good at making any printer print well, which I guess is more of a strength than a weakness. I mean, he's had printers where he shows them printing awesome, and then I get the same printer and I'm like, this printer sucks. So, yeah, he's a different kind of person. All right, let's pass over testing and get into production. So by the time you're ready to start producing a printer, the design should be finalized. You should have done some initial testing to make sure that the printer will perform as anticipated, but then you gotta start putting these printers together. That involves making some slight modifications to the design to make it more manufacturable, actually setting up the supply chain and assembly line. So there's a lot of work to be done in production, and we need some experts here to really help us put together our printers as effectively as possible. So to lead up our production team, I'm going to hire Nero 3D. He runs a live stream where he'll build a lot of Vorons and other types of printers, and I think he's just the guy for the job. I think he has a good understanding of the fundamentals of what makes a good printer and how to put them together, and he's just so passionate about assembling printers. He spends basically every day putting printers together, so that's just the type of person we need in production. In addition to his innate drive to just put printers together, he also has a kind of an openness and willingness to share feedback with the designers. So if he sees something that's kind of messed up with a printer as he's putting it together, he'll be like, hey, you guys might want to fix this. So that'll be an effective way to share feedback back to our research and development and testing teams to kind of identify areas where we need to improve our designs. But, what are some issues with Nero? Well, mainly, I think we have to worry about him dropping printers. I've seen him do it multiple times, and he's very unapologetic about it. So we need to give him some training on how to hold printers securely, maybe put some handles on there so they're a little bit easier to manage. Make sure he has a dolly cart so he can push those printers around and just mitigate that risk entirely. We might have to force him to wear steel-toed boots as well, because I don't know if we can get this guy insured with how often he drops printers. Also, I fully expect him to break whatever dress code that we make. He's going to be wearing that apron all the time. I mean, we can't take him to formal places, we can't take him to casual places, because he's just always got that leather apron on, and it just kind of makes him stick out in a way that we really want people to just blend in, especially when we're making public appearances like at trade shows and whatnot. Alright, so the next person I want to put on our production team, we're going to pick Vez 3D. So Simon Vez, I'm not sure how to say it, but in any case, he's the guy who produced the VezBot, or the VZBot. I'm not sure what exactly you want to call it, but he's been documenting his progress on making this really high-speed printer concept for quite some time. So he's printing relatively large objects using this Core XY construction machine, using a lot of CNC machined parts, and designing his own hot ends and extruders and all that kind of stuff. So he's got a lot of design experience, and I'm tempted to put him up in the research and development part of things. But really, I think what Vez is good at is taking advantage of the existing manufacturing technologies like CNC machining, and just taking a concept that's already good and making it better. So he's done a lot of optimization with his design. By making his parts as strong and light as possible, he's able to improve the performance of these machines. And the design isn't completely frozen by the time it enters production. In fact, it's pretty common to make some changes to the design to improve performance, make things less expensive, and just kind of make it more manufacturable overall. And since he has such a good understanding of machining and assembling and building products, I think he'd do a great job in production. One thing I'm a little concerned about with Vez is sometimes he makes the printers go too fast. And I saw in a video he bolted his printer into his wall. I'm a little bit concerned that if he gets that thing shaking fast enough and with enough amplitude, he might actually cause an earthquake or get the building oscillating or something and cause stuff to fall off the shelves and make cracks appear in the foundations. So sometimes we might need to slow him down a little bit, because we can't have every printer being bolted to the walls. We need it to be a freestanding thing, because I feel like it's a little unreasonable to expect our customers to drill holes in the wall just to install the thing. Just like slow it down a little bit there, Vez. Also, there's this guy Slant 3D. He does some shorts and long videos. He uploads pretty regularly. But I want him on the production team as well, because of his specialty with 3D printing for mass production. So he does a lot of really neat videos about tips and tricks to make your part designs more 3D printable. And he runs a pretty big print farm, and he's trying to make filament prices come down. So he's doing a lot of cool stuff, and I think having him on the production team will make it so that if we're doing any production 3D printing, he can head that up. However, he does need to work on something. He just has one angle that he uses when he films. It's just like this head-on deer in the headlights kind of look. So we might need to get him some professional stage lighting, maybe an extra camera and a tripod, just so that we can get him a proper camera set up for when he makes videos. So yeah, if we can get started on that, I think there's definitely room for him on the team. Okay, and I've got one more person I want to put in the production team, and that is Steve Builds. So Steve Builds, he's similar to Nero, where he does live streams assembling all sorts of printers, a lot of Voron designs and all that kind of stuff. But really, I just want him on the production team because he really likes putting printers together. He just won't stop putting printers together. And in fact, one of the things that I'm a little bit worried about is that even if we fired him and had to let him go and stopped paying him, he might still keep coming in and still keep putting printers together. So that's just something we'll have to watch out for. Also, his profile picture is a cat, so I'm a little concerned that he might be a cat person. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but he might be a cat person. All right, let's go back up to testing. So testing has multiple purposes in an engineering and product development kind of environment. So you'll do first article testing. So in that case, you'll be testing prototypes that are coming out of research and development. You'll be verifying performance parameters and making sure that there's no glaring design flaws. And then once you've gone into production, you'll also want to do some testing on the articles that you're producing. Testing for production is like you're supporting the assembly line and making sure everything coming off the assembly line is good. So this could mean doing some statistical sampling and testing every 10th printer just to make sure that everything's still going good. Or it might mean testing every single printer to make sure that it operates as it's leaving the assembly line. So testing is a pretty broad and varied category, but I think people who have a good head on their shoulders for testing will be able to do any of that kind of stuff. So let's get into the testing team. So to lead things off, I'm going to assign ModBot as the head of testing. So ModBot, he's a very well-mannered person. Testing often has to put up with a bunch of bull. So having someone who won't lose their temper in those kind of situations would be good. And I feel like ModBot is a pretty chill person, and he'd be able to handle it. Also, when he features printers and stuff for review on his channel, he has a really practical way of looking at them, just kind of using them and getting some real hands-on experience. And I think that kind of attention to detail in terms of simulating real-world usage, I think will mean that if it can get through ModBot, then it's probably a good product. I think he's really good at identifying the weak points and the strong points of a product, so that kind of feedback is invaluable to the rest of the team, and I think he'd do a great job. My only concern is that he always requires further ado to get into things, so that might get old after a while, but we gotta push him along and make sure the further ado goes no further. We need to get started with things. So without further ado, we'll pick the next person on the testing team, and this one's gonna be tough. Not everyone's going to like this decision, but we're going to put design prototype test on the testing team. Now, DPT, he's kind of a controversial figure. He gets into all sorts of trouble online, but he does have a pretty good understanding of product design, and it's in his name, design prototype test, so I think you'd be good at it. One of the things that he frequently does on his channel is he'll nitpick things and really kind of look at really small things that are good or bad about a product. So having that kind of perspective is useful. But, he's a bit of a controversial guy, and sometimes he shakes things up a little bit too much, so that's something we'll have to keep an eye on in terms of managing the risk of having DPT on the team. Next up, we have Aurora Tech. So, Aurora Tech channel, it's like a brother-sister duo. They're very young. I think they're 14 and 15 or something. Pretty young kids. They're making a lot of YouTube videos. I think they produce one a week, and they do pretty exhaustive reviews on laser cutters, 3D printers, CNC machines, and all that kind of stuff. So what I like about their capabilities is that they're very consistent with the work that they do, and they're able to do very repeatable testing. You need that attention to detail and that repeatability in your testing procedures, and I think they have a pretty good handle on that. My only concern is that before we hire them on, we're going to have to look into the child labor laws and make sure we're not in violation there, because the last thing I need is someone coming knocking on my door and being like, hey, you can't hire kids. I don't know if we need to get a signature from their parents or what, but yeah, that's something I'm a little concerned about before we send out the final job offer. All right, and next up we have My Tech Fun. I don't know if you've ever watched Igor from My Tech Fun, but he always does a lot of interesting testing. So one of the more recent videos I've watched, he showed the strength of CNC machined parts versus metal 3D printed parts versus other 3D printed parts. And he does a whole lot of testing. He'll test all aspects of extruders, different materials, different printing processes, post-processing. I mean, he really does some technical deep dives. And he's able to do his experiments with pretty inexpensive equipment. I mean, it's not like a proper test lab where you have $10,000 or $100,000 machines yanking on things. He's just setting up cheap stuff in his backyard with a winch and like a load cell. But I think if we got him a proper budget, he could put a pretty good lab together. And I think he understands a lot of the material properties and stuff that we'd want to be testing. So I'd really like to have him on the team. One thing that I'm a little bit concerned about with him is that sometimes he talks too fast. Like if you go to any of his videos and he says his intro, I don't know what he's saying. Sometimes he's like, hello, my name is Igor. And I'm like, okay, just slow down a little bit there. Your name is Igor, and this is My Tech Fun? Is that where we're at? Okay. Generally, he's very understandable with the way he speaks, but I think his intro, he likes to rush it out as fast as possible. Okay, next up, let's get into marketing. Marketing is really important. For me, someone who's in engineering, sometimes I don't really fully understand what goes on in marketing. Recently, running this YouTube channel, interfacing with a lot of marketing people from the companies that I work with, I mean, I kind of start to get an understanding for what they need to do. Basically, you need to drum up excitement and attention for your product, and also you need to do market research that you share with your research and development. So in a way, you're helping guide the company with your insights, and you're kind of one of the people that's talking with customers a lot to try and figure out what they need and what they want. So marketing has a very important role in any organization, because you can have the perfect solution, but if nobody knows about it, then what's it matter? It's like if a tree falls in the middle of the forest with nobody around to hear it, does it make a sound? Which is completely silly. Of course it makes a sound, but, it's important that people hear it and can tell that story. All right, so speaking of stories, we've got Filament Stories. So Filament Stories, I think her name is Courtney. She does great short-form content and spreads awareness of all these different types of filament. She'll get like different colorful filaments, different brands of filaments, and showcase it all on her channel using a standardized format and doing some sample prints and really just showing them off. So when I watch shorts, oftentimes I'll watch a couple of hers and be like, oh, those filaments are cool. I don't usually end up buying them because I already have too much filament and I don't print enough, but it's kind of cool learning about all the different colors and that kind of stuff. So yeah, she's able to produce like catchy, attention-grabbing, kind of short-form stuff that will spread awareness about our brand, which is good. One thing I'm a little bit worried about with her is that I think she might be addicted to filament. Possible filament addiction we might need to address, so we need to keep an eye on her filament consumption, but she really likes the stuff, so I don't want to take it away, but we need to really monitor it and make sure that it's being handled appropriately. Next up, we have Zach Freedman. So we're putting him on the marketing team because he can take a completely boring and uninteresting subject that I thought I would never care about or need to know about, and he'll make a cool video about it, and I'll learn a little bit about it, learn about hundreds of other different types of filaments, learn about diamond tip nozzles and why that might be a thing, storage solutions. So I think he presents a lot of interesting information, and he's able to kind of reach a broader audience with that. Zach is someone we're going to need on the team to be able to spread our message, and even when we need to share some boring stuff with people, he might be able to find a way to make it interesting, which is really important for marketing. One thing I'm a little bit worried about with Zach is he's a little bit vulnerable to roof leaks. I mean, he can get really held up over that stuff. The other thing is he kind of can't stop saying innuendos. So depending on the situation that we're in, we might need to keep Zach in the back room, make sure he doesn't interact with certain people that might be offended by his innuendos. So aside from that, I think he'd be a great member of the marketing team. Next up in marketing, this might be a bit of a controversial pick, but I'm going to put Maker's Muse into the marketing department. Now, marketing is also about outreach and like reaching new people, and I think Maker's Muse does a really good job of kind of sharing the message of 3D printing and how that can empower your creativity. So, I mean, that's a really positive, nice sounding message, and he came up with that. We need him on the slogan making team. We need him empowering people, empowering our customers. So, yeah. And also for market research, I think he has a pretty good understanding of the types of 3D printing that people do, and he's a very honest and reputable guy. So, he'll do a great job helping us out with marketing. Also, his ability to explain complex topics in a concise and easy to understand way, I think, is useful for basically any part of this organization, but in marketing especially, because you want to be able to explain why your new technology might be more expensive or might be more advantageous to your customers and why it's worth paying for. You just got to watch out with Maker's Muse. If you leave him alone in a room with more than one robot, he probably will make them fight, and then you're going to have a broken robot on your hands. Also, he makes things roll that shouldn't roll. So if you need things to stay put, you got to watch out, because he might make them start just wobbling around and sliding and slipping. So keep an eye on him. Make sure he doesn't get up to any of those crazy antics. All right, and last up on the marketing team, we've got JJ Shankles. So I've worked with JJ quite a bit. We have a podcast together called the Perfect First Layer podcast. If you want to check it out, there's a link in the description. But why I want JJ on the marketing team is, while he does have an engineering background, that's something we've talked about before, I think he's really interested in just sharing the technology with people. So he's just really excited about 3D printing technology and wants to share it with everyone. And in the process of sharing that message, you reach new customers, you inform new people about, hey, maybe this is available and it might be something we want to try out. So we've got JJ here to help out with that. Also, he's really good with the shorts, so he's been doing a lot of short form content. He can head up our company TikTok. I know he's not really active on TikTok, but short form content is really important for a company's marketing plan, so he can run those social medias. One thing we got to watch out for with JJ, though, is that he might let stray dogs into the office. So if he sees a dog out there and it looks like it doesn't have a home, it might start living in the office shortly thereafter. Also, if we have an espresso machine on premises, we might need to just make sure that he's not using it too much. I know he likes to go over to espresso machines and start reviewing them, but if I need to go get an espresso and he's sitting there with the camera, it might cause a bit of a traffic jam situation. So we might actually need to get him his own espresso machine or have him bring his own into work. So there's ways to mitigate that, but I think he'll do a great job. All right, and on the sales side, let's get into sales. So first up, I gotta put Uncle Jessy on the sales team. He does a lot of product showcases. Everything that he works with, he makes it look fun. He makes resin printers look fun. He makes his high-speed Core XY printers look fun. And he does cosplay, which is like a great way to showcase the capabilities of a printer. Being able to print out large objects and put them on and have some really awesome showcase-ready parts. I think that's exactly what we need on the sales team. Also, he's able to showcase and use all sorts of different printers. And in general, I think he does a pretty good job. Now with Jessy, admittedly, he doesn't get into the tech specs and like do deep dives onto the internals of exactly how a printer works. But on the sales side, you don't really need that. You just need to know how to use the printer, do some beep, beep, boop, and get the thing going and make some prints that look good. So I think Jessy would do a great job at that. The only issue with Jessy is that sometimes he'll send things back. And also glass panels. We got to watch out with him around glass panels. I think he was doing a live stream and he was fooling around, and next thing you know, the door goes flying off his Creality K1 Max and ends up shattered on the floor. So just watch out for that. You might need to kind of make sure things won't break before you hand it to him, like bubble wrap everything. But once he's going with his printers, I think he's fine. Next up on the sales team, we've got Mirage C. So Mirage C, he actually does a lot of product development and testing, but I think above all, what he does really well is he takes the results of that testing and explains why certain solutions are better than others and why you might want this over that. We need him on the marketing team to help explain to customers why they need to buy our potentially more expensive solution and back that up with test data and show them like, hey, this is the best that we have. this is the best that's on the market, and I think he could help convert a lot of customers that way. Something about Mirage C is similar to CNC Kitchen. Sometimes he will dive too deep, so we need to pull him back a little bit. Make sure he's not collecting too much data, and make sure he stays on top of his other duties as well. All right, next up on sales, we've got the Next Layer. So the Next Layer, he's, he has a YouTube channel. He'll showcase a lot of stuff, but I think what this guy's really good at is selling things. I mean, just put anything in front of this guy, and I'm sure he'll figure out a way to sell it. He's helped sell Sovals, Crealities, Bamboo Labs, any type of device that could be sold. He's willing to help you sell it. So great guy to have on the sales team. I mean, we need people to sell stuff on the sales team, so that's exactly where I want him to be to really help, make us profitable, really. That's a really important part of running a company. One thing I'm a little bit worried about with the Next Layer is we might need to kind of revoke his badge access to the R&D labs and make sure that he doesn't know about our latest cutting edge stuff, just because sometimes he gets a little excited and might overshare about things sometimes. But in terms of being a great salesman, I think he'll be an excellent member of the team. All right, and last up for sales, we've got Mandic Really. So, Mandic Really, yep, I said that right. He's on YouTube, he's on TikTok, and he does videos about just general 3D printing stuff. Last I checked, he was trying to pivot away from doing 3D printer reviews, but he likes doing projects with his 3D printers, and he's a great videographer. I think he'd do a great job of producing assets to put on our website and just have really cinematic looking product photography and stuff to put on our sales pages. So overall, I think as a product videographer and product photographer, Mandic would do a great job. Also, if we were doing any corporate events, I think he'd be a great person to have behind the camera just because he does such a good job with the cinematography. I mean, his videos, he's basically second to none with his slider work, and he does a lot of creative stuff in there. He also has a lot of crazy lighting, and he's probably got the most professional studio setup of anyone in the 3D printing kind of YouTube area. Aside from maybe 3D Printing Nerd, he's got his producer helping him out. But in terms of a one-man show, I think Mandic is doing a great job of making a nice studio with a good cinematic look. One of my concerns with Mandic, though, is basically, if you give him access to RGB lights, he's going to use all of them. So we can have lighting, we can have all sorts of RGB lights and stuff, but don't let him have access to all of them. Just give him one light that he's allowed to use, because I'm really worried that he's just going to hoard all of the RGB lights and just have them up all over the place, and it's going to look like some kind of haunted house in our office. Also, he does CAD design, so, really he's an all-rounder that could fit into a lot of different areas of the corporation, but I just really like the way his photography and videography looks. So, in sales or marketing, producing that content to be able to showcase our products, I think would be a great place for him. Okay, now let's get into customer support. First up, we gotta put CHEP here. So, what's great about CHEP is that he understands the average person's kind of struggles with 3D printing. I'm not sure if that's because he struggles with them himself, or he just really likes helping people and spends a lot of time answering questions and knows what people struggle with. But he's there to help develop custom solutions for people, get them set up with print profiles, walk them through basics. I mean, his show Filament Friday is all about just helping people with basic issues with 3D printing and just kind of teaching you little tidbits here and there. And I'll be honest, when I got started on YouTube, I watched a lot of CHEP. I haven't been keeping up with his content too much lately just because I'm so focused on making my own. But I remember, he's got this kind of Tim the Toolman Taylor kind of vibe where he's just in his little shop setting things up and printing out little tools and having fun. So, I think he would do a great job in customer service, though, because he's so great at talking to people and understanding their problems and getting them started with 3D printing. My only concern with CHEP, though, is there was a kind of disturbing incident where he amputated an Ender 3's left arm, and it was not medically necessary at all. I fear this was some kind of Frankenstein weird stuff going on, where he just chopped its arm off, and it still worked. It was kind of freaky, though. But yeah, we just gotta keep an eye on him, make sure he doesn't get into too many crazy experiments, but I think he'd do a great job helping people out. And before we wrap up with customer support here, let's actually address a couple of these people that aren't going in the customer support tier. Mainly Lost in Tech. I think he would do an awful job interfacing with customers. Also, I'm a little bit worried about his skills in sales, marketing, and production. So, I mean, I think he's going to get pushed all the way up to the executive class just because I'm not sure where else to put him. I think he'd cause too much trouble anywhere else, but at least this way we can just kind of put him off in the corner somewhere and make him feel like he's in charge of stuff. And I think that would be best. So Lost in Tech, I want him to be my Chief Information Officer. I think he does a great job of keeping up with everything that's going on Twitter and Slicer updates. So he makes a lot of videos of just about like random topics on, this is the new Prusa slicer. This is the new whatever printer thing that's come out. My only concern is that he doesn't push sales as much as the rest of us. I'm always telling you, you gotta buy this, you gotta buy that. The other guys are like, buy this, buy that. But he's always like, here's the printer. This is what it does. It prints. It even prints TPU. So he's not the best at converting those sales, which is something that we might need to do some coaching with him. Take him to some sales seminars. Send him to those places where car salesmen learn how to sell cars and stuff. I think that would be good for him. Also, another thing that I think he might need to work on is showing up to work. Nobody's ever seen his face. I think he would prefer to work completely remotely. So, I mean, that's going to be an issue if we're having meetings and we're in crunch time. We need everyone on deck. He might be missing in action in those situations. And to round out my executive team, I've also got Proper Printing. Proper Printing, he's got all sorts of wacky projects going on. He doesn't produce a whole lot of videos anymore, but every one he comes out with is an absolute banger. So check out his content if you want to see some weird, fun stuff. I want Proper Printing to be the Chief Experience Officer. Someone who's working on the user experience, kind of making sure that our products are fun and enjoyable to use. Injecting some quirky looks or features into them just to make them stand out from the competition. But also kind of focusing on the internal experience of working at our company. I think his kind of quirky attitude and odd take on things and unconventional problem solving is exactly what we need in someone who's developing our company culture. So we want to foster that kind of environment of curiosity and unconventional problem solving. And I think he would do a great job of motivating us to tackle more ambitious problems. Now, this is a bit of a double-edged sword. He does like to tackle ambitious problems. One of the issues with Proper Printing, though, is that many of his projects end in failure. So we're going to have to, maybe not bet the whole company on these ideas that he's working on, but it's just something to kind of work on in the background and just kind of improve morale, seeing all these crazy fun stuff that's going on. And I think one thing we can learn from Proper Printing is that sometimes the projects fail, but the real goal was the cinematic video we made along the way. It's worth it to just try things and see what works and what doesn't, and you end up being a little bit smarter for it at the end of the day, and you have fun. So, Chief Experience Officer right there, I think you'd do a great job of maintaining our company culture and keeping things fresh. Alright, now let's round out our customer support team. So next up we've got Chris Riley from Chris's Basement. I've met Chris a couple of times in person at the RepRap festivals. He's a great guy, really nice. When I was getting started in 3D printing, his firmware installation and configuration guides were second to none. He takes you through all the important steps and makes sure you don't get lost. So he does a lot of great videos about that kind of stuff. He's still kicking around here on YouTube. He's not making as many videos as he used to, but I'm always glad to see him when they come out. My only concern with Chris is that sometimes he's too nice. Like if we need to do some ruthless cost cutting or some aggressive business tactics, I'm not sure he'll be down for that. So we might need to keep him away from shareholder meetings where we're making the tough decisions. But in general, he's a great guy, and especially on the customer support team, I think he'll do a really good job producing documentation and making sure that people don't get lost while they're trying to figure out how to use our products. All right, second to last here, we have Teaching Tech. We're going to put him right here in the customer support area. Now, this isn't to say that Teaching Tech couldn't also be in the research and development or executive or testing team. I mean, this guy's got a pretty well-rounded wealth of knowledge when it comes to 3D printing. But again, when I was learning how to do 3D printing, I think all of these guys in the customer support team were kind of the most instrumental in teaching me the basics about 3D printing. So for new users and just explaining things to people who might not necessarily have the experience that they need to be able to operate things properly, I think having these guys on the customer support team is where they can add the most value. One thing I really like about teaching tech is similar to Maker's Muse. I mean, they're both Australian, but in addition to that, both of them are very good at explaining things concisely that are relatively complex or kind of difficult subjects. They're good at just kind of explaining it in a way that you get it after you're done listening to his 30 to 40 minute video. And you usually don't feel like you're getting lost or anything. It's like, you know, you're getting hyped up and you're learning things. The last person I want to put on the customer support team is 3D Print General. So 3D Print General, he has a couple of publications, some books about 3D printing, like common 3D printing failures and stuff. He also helped out Bamboo Lab with their documentation. So if you go to the Bamboo Lab website, you can see he's actually uploaded some videos that they've used, or shared with them some videos about how to go through step by step through their slicers and stuff. So he's a great guy, really helps people understand 3D printing. And I think he kind of approaches it from a non-technical perspective. I mean, I've heard him talk about this before, where, you know, he doesn't have the engineering background that someone like myself or like CNC Kitchen have. I can explain things in a certain way using engineering terminology, but at the end of the day, if you're trying to explain it to someone who doesn't have the same background as you, sometimes you can run into some stumbling blocks. And what 3D Print General is trying to do is explain things coming from like a different direction, so that maybe someone who doesn't have as technical a background will be able to learn and pick things up a little bit faster with the way that he describes things. So I think he'd be a great member of the team. In terms of his weaknesses, Wait, his channel was deleted. Oh, wow. Okay, well, he doesn't deserve to be on this list then. Let's get him out of here. What? I can't get rid of him. Well, I guess he's stuck here with us then. In all seriousness, if you do like 3D Print General, and you're wondering why you haven't seen him on YouTube in a while, well, his entire channel of 123 or 124,000 subscribers was deleted due to some kind of dispute with YouTube. It happened a while ago. Like there was something he did like a year ago. Anyways, I can't get into it and explain the whole thing here properly, but I'll leave a link down below where you can go follow him on Twitter. That's where he's most active nowadays, and I still think he's getting the fun toys. I think he got a Bamboo Lab A1. I didn't get a Bamboo Lab A1, and he gets a Bamboo Lab A1, and he's not even on YouTube. So, you know, it is what it is. So, yeah, I mean, this is my company. I tried to organize this so I had 4 people in each category. Of course, in executives, there's 5 because I have to be on the list. But, you know, if you take me out or put me anywhere else, we've still got 4 everywhere. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I don't offend people too much with this video, or if you disagree with where I placed some of your favorite YouTubers, then let me know in the comments down below where you think they should go. Alright, well, it's been fun, and have fun printing, everyone. I'll see you in the next episode.